Okay guys, next subtopic. Next topic is economic growth. Economic growth Economic growth is basically a situation when the economy can produce more. Previously, Taiwan was an agrarian country, perhaps producing rice and other products, similar products. Now, semiconductors, chips, right? Economic growth, but that's economics 2 next semester. For now, how it relates to our chapter, economic growth is expansion of production possibilities. Okay. Economic growth is expansion of the production possibilities. So if we're talking about the whole country, before we could produce this much, now it's expanded so we can produce more. That's illustration of the economic growth. It doesn't have to be only that way. It could be this way, right? Or the other way around, right? Okay, anyway, expansion of production possibilities frontier. Previously, these points A and B were unattainable. Now they are attainable. Before we couldn't get to A and B, now we can. So we can produce more. An example of economic growth. Okay. Factors affecting economic growth. If you can't see on the board, I'm trying to read out factors affecting economic growth. So there are only 3 factors affecting economic growth, okay? So, the amount of labor that the country has, it's better. The amount of capital it has, perhaps including human capital, more abilities, skills, and things, and the technology that we use. So only 3 things that affect economic growth, right? And usually with time, as decades pass from 1950s to 1960s to nowadays, technology has changed, right? Maybe number of people in the world has increased. Maybe we have more factories, right? So generally we can produce more than in the past, but basically these are the 3 affecting economic growth. Do you want to ask?
Would resources be considered capital?
That is a good question. Resources. Where could we put resources? Huh? So, if we don't have resources, perhaps we can't really produce anything. So, on one hand, it's supposed to affect economic growth, right? If we don't have enough resources, we can't expand production, let's say. We need that chemical, let's say, to expand our production.
Take for example, oil. A country might be rich in oil, but if it doesn't have refineries, which would be considered technology, then it can't
I think refineries would be over here in capital. What I mean by technology is like the general level of technological advance we have. Like it's all the general scientific progress, right? So all the new kind of methods of refining, right? Instead of whatever the methods were like 60 years ago, maybe the methods are different now. But the refinery itself, it would be part of the capital. That's physical capital. So the oil itself, the resources, that's a really good question. I think I gotta think about that a little bit longer. But perhaps somewhere between capital and technology, hard to say. On one hand, maybe it's used within the production as short-term capital, just like the refinery is used up. Over a longer term, in 60 years, it's going to kind of become dilapidated. It's been used so much, right? So maybe part of it, you are right, is capital. On the other hand, if we advance the technology, we don't need oil anymore. We can produce the same products, perhaps from other materials. I mean, if we can manipulate the molecules, we can produce anything from anything, basically. Just combine whatever the molecules are in the air into whatever we want. So that it should be, right?
Maybe resources by themselves should be considered another factor.
It's hard to separate that into a separate factor because they change all the time, right? The resources that we needed 70 years ago are different from the resources we need now, perhaps, right? And
but I thought in accounting we have capital and land is also capital.
Yeah.
So
perhaps they
the
would
land
go into the
is
capital.
natural resource.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why is not it belongs to capital?
What about different types of resources? Solar, wind.
Yes, there are different types of resources. Yes. So, talking about accounting, land versus capital. So we do have a fourth factor of production. That's factors of production. Slightly misleading because I call these factors as well. But let's say these are things affecting. Basically, I'm just giving a list of things that can make economic growth either faster or slower. So just by chance, I use the same word factors. We have things that go into production, we call them factors of production, including land and capital, right? Yes, so in a different subtopic in economics, factors of production, there are only 4 big categories, including all the different kinds of resources like solar and oil and others. They're all in land, all natural resources. Although in accounting, perhaps it's different. They might go into capital, right? In economics, we separate them as land resources. Here, what I'm trying to talk about is, let's forget the word factors, because it just by chance connects us to the factors of production. What are the things that economic growth depends on? Because we want economic growth. We want a better standard of living, right? Well, in general, how can we produce more, basically? That is the question, because that's what economic growth is, looking at this simple definition. Although you might say maybe producing more is not ideal, maybe we are polluting the environment, and stuff like that, right? Just as it relates to this chapter, economic growth is just being able to produce more. How can we produce more? Well, if we have more labor, if we have more capital, and if we have better technology. You are absolutely right. If we don't have enough resources, we might not be able to produce more, even if we have more factories, right? But I think here it could be trumped by, okay, hypothetically, right? It's all hypothetical. If we come up with a new method of doing things, perhaps we will not need that particular resource, right? So maybe this would trump that resource requirement, right? Whereas with the rest of it, perhaps we can't trump anything else.
You always need labor, you always need capital.
And you always need a method to combine them, right? So this is more like not a particular factor, right? It's just a general state of scientific progress of how we combine things to do things, right? Yeah, I mean, you could probably argue against labor a little bit. You could have robotics or something, I don't know, right? But perhaps we at least need engineers to control those robots, right? So yes, that's a really good thing to kind of think over these very interesting questions. Tricky a little bit about the resources, but yeah, we could think of them as short-term capital. Or I could try to trump it, I don't know, with advancing technology. Hard to say. I'll think about it. I'm not sure. So these are the things that affect economic growth. And economic growth is costly. Even economic growth is costly because it requires some sort of investment. Okay? Either we need to spend time to create new technologies, we need to think hard to create new technologies, right? Or we need to spend more accumulating capital instead of, I don't know, enjoying our life, right? Let's say we have two simple examples, pizzas and pizza ovens. For example, right? We can either produce pizzas or pizza ovens, right? And let's say we have two countries. One is over here, country A, and one is over here, country B, and this is, let's say, 2020, right? Which of the countries, A or B, are enjoying more pizzas? B, right? They're enjoying their life. They have a lot of pizza, right? So country A, perhaps they kind of having some costs of not enjoying their pizzas as much. But next year, 2021, 2022, which of these two countries do you think will have a greater expansion in their production possibilities? Remember, with pizza ovens, you can make more pizza, right?
Pizza A? No, country A.
Yeah, because now they're making more pizza ovens, right? So next year, the year after that, they'll have more ovens already, right? So they'll have more capital. So perhaps with more of those ovens, maybe country A's PPF next year will look like this because they can make more pizzas with those ovens, right? So costs of economic growth. Okay, either spending more on research, new technology, or spending more to accumulate capital. Costs of economic growth, how it looks like on the chart, and that's it for this small subtopic. Okay, let's separate these topics.